Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
All right, guys. Hey, welcome back to the show. I have a tremendous guest, a guest that I've been on quite a bit with, and I'm talking about Kathryn Lancioni. Kathryn is the owner and the founder of Presenting Perfection. She's in Montclair, New Jersey, and she offers coaching and consulting services issued to the field of communication. She knows everything about communication. And maybe someday I'll tell you a funny story. But over there at Presenting Perfection, they cover everything from public speaking, which they say is the number one fear some besides some other things that I'm going to discuss with some of the producers around here later, and interpersonal communications. So they get to the root of all of it over there. You know, the fear of speaking, post-COVID communications, interpersonal communications. Guys, if you want to call in 631-730-7376 or get me on instant feedback. It is my honor and privilege to bring back to the program the one and only Miss Kathryn Lancioni. Kathryn, how are you today? And we got off to a little knucklehead start on my end, but I'm so glad you're here.
I could always be called Clarissa. It's all all good. It's all good. So anyway,
it's live TV, live radio.
It is. It's all good. So yeah, so we had a really interesting show last week. We were talking about communication and like post-COVID communication, and people called in with questions relating to a whole bunch of things that we'd never had before. Ranging from talking to your kids, to talking to your parents, to romantic relationships. So we thought this week we would kind of capitalize on that and focus really on the differences between men and women, because Casey, you and I do communicate very, very differently.
We do. And one thing that I thought was awesome is that you said we almost have to do a complete, was it 360 when you start over? Because this COVID thing has thrown over communication or a lot of it for some of us. It's like we got to start over.
Well, it is. And I was at Shakespeare in the Park on Friday night in New York, which was always amazing, always a great New York experience. But like, it was super interesting because the way they had it done, people were either side by side if they had proof of vaccination, or they were socially distanced. And you could tell that the people that were sitting side by side, even though we all knew that each other had been vaccinated, there was still this level of discomfort of having somebody right next to you, which, you never would have questioned in theater prior to COVID. It's the same thing when you walk into a restaurant now and everyone's indoors and everyone has to show proof of COVID ID to get in. But, the reality is people have a little bit of PTSD after this whole thing. And, I see people in someone will walk up and talk to them and the person backs away because they're not used to someone being close to them. Whereas pre-COVID, no one cared.
We'll actually take 2 or 3 steps back away from them. So they have a distance. Now, if that's not saying to the other person, number one, it's very rude, but 2, it's not very intimate, and 3, it's almost like confrontational. Would you say that?
Totally. Yeah, totally. So I think the rules of communication have been really, really affected because of this whole thing. And I think, I said people are like, everyone is responding differently. And I think sometimes people are responding in ways that they wouldn't otherwise do. I know I was having a conversation with someone, I think it was just yesterday, and she and I were, I don't know, we'll say 3 or 4 feet apart. And at one point, to your point, she deliberately stepped back like another foot or two. I was so far, I almost felt like I had to yell. And I don't know, I don't know what it was, but it was weird because it really changed the way that I spoke to her and that I interacted with her. And it made it almost seem like a shouting match rather than just a conversation.
Did it seem like there was something maybe wrong with you?
It could be. I smelled bad. I don't know.
No, I see. That's what I would think as someone with at times low self-esteem, whatever. I would think that it's something that I did for someone to take a step back, not knowing that these are the times we're living in. And
Yeah.
is that a natural response, do you think?
I think it's a natural response, and I think people. I had taken a shower, so I knew it didn't smell bad, but I knew I had that one going for me. But I think some people could be insulted by it, and other people could just have the thought that I did, which was, you know what, she feels like I'm too comfortable to her. Let me back up. Let her back up, and it was fine. But it was just weird, and it was like right in the middle of the conversation. It would be okay if it started in the beginning, but it was literally right in the middle, which made it really kind of crazy.
Kathryn, can I ask you something?
Sure.
With everything that's happening, and you study communication, you know everything. You know why I just put my hand up like this.
Right.
You know all this stuff. So I kind of want to keep my hands to myself, and I want to look straightforward, because you could pick me apart in a minute. But if someone's coughing around you, and you're having a conversation with them, what's polite to do now? What are we supposed to do as far as communication goes?
And you're getting more and more of that. No, you are. Like I was in a restaurant the other night. Everyone had proof of ID and all that. And someone coughed, and like literally half the restaurant like turned their head and looked like, oh my God. Heaven forbid someone sneezes. Um, I haven't had it, I have to be honest, I haven't had it happen to me yet post-COVID, but
Mhm.
it does make me nervous when I'm in wherever I am and someone coughs or sneezes now. Whereas before it was just annoying, but now it's like, oh boy, isn't that the way it's spread? And again, I'm vaccinated, so I really should not be concerned. But I think there's been such a crazy amount of information in the media that everybody has seen that it gives you the heebie-jeebies when somebody does
Yeah.
that. You
Yeah,
know.
no, it totally does. So I'm excited to hear kind of your thoughts, and kind of where you think we are now. Are things getting better or are they getting worse?
I think it depends upon who the person is. There have been a bunch of people that literally have not left their homes since March of 2020. And I think for those people, they're very much easing back into being part of society. And I think it's hard for them. And I think it's going to take a long time. I mean, I have a couple of friends who had fairly serious bouts with COVID, meaning that they went to the hospital, they had the remdesivir and all that stuff. And so now they really aren't. I mean, and these are people that were super social pre-COVID. They are very, very apprehensive to go out in public. They won't gather in a group of more than 2 or 3 people. And again, these are people that used to have big parties and all that
Oh,
because
wow.
the COVID experience shocked them so much. I mean, I think you see that with the older folks too. People over the age of 70 or 75, they're still afraid. And you have to respect them being afraid, because the crazy part is this COVID is spread through communication, right? Because we talk, we sneeze, we cough, droplets come out, they go to the other person, they inhale them, they could get COVID. So it's a real fear, and it's a fear based in fact. So it's important that people not try to criticize other people if they're afraid of interacting with you. Um, and then there are some people that have been kind of out and about during COVID, and I guess I fall into that category. Like I really tried to never stop living my life. And so for me, there have been a couple situations where people try to shake my hands, and I'm like, nah, it's okay. Just
No, you'll do the.
meet you. Yeah, I'm just like, or that, I'm just like, oh, it's so nice to meet you.
Mm,
But for me, it's been fine. Like I said, the only hesitancy happens when there's that person behind you that sneezes. And my initial thought is like, okay, where am I? I'm in a restaurant. Everyone's supposed to have had their vaccine. But if I'm not in a restaurant, I'm in a store, I'm like, God, I hope they have a mask on, because I just having those particles in the air, you don't know what they are. And again, it's not crazy thoughts. It's all based on fact, at least from what we know of how the disease
oh,
is
of
spread.
of what we know of who says it. I mean,
Right.
I think that's a lot of it is just we don't know
Correct.
what. I think we're very lost, and I think we're all doing our best, but
Absolutely.
you
And
know,
that's what everybody has to remember is, I know I definitely went on been going on sort of a media detox recently, because just like watching way too much TV about what's going on, because I realized that, what all I can do is do what I've done.
yeah,
Get my vaccine, wear a mask when I'm inside, maintain a social distance where I can. And that's all I can do, right? That's all that's been asked of me. And it's all I can do. And it's not for me. And again, it's very personal for me. I'm not going to stop being who I am,
right.
but I'm just going to try to be who I am, but taking in mind the people around me. And again, that's a very personal way. This whole thing is very personal. And so people have to remember that patience is so incredibly important right now, especially when you're talking to someone, especially when you're communicating with them.
Hmm.
So,
And I can understand what you're saying, because the other day I was having dinner in like a bar slash restaurant, and then when you go to a bar, there are people that are yelling,
oh yeah,
and nothing bad, but they're trying to talk over the music, and I'm thinking to myself, do I need this?
right, right,
So I'm
right.
like, can I take this plate? And yeah,
Go.
so yeah. So I guess it comes down to we're not there yet, are we?
No, and we're not going to be for a while. I mean, I think, the other part of it is, even if you're a healthy adult, if you have kids who aren't vaccinated because they're not eligible, or they just aren't, those people are also scared because they don't want to be out in a social environment. And then even if they've had their vaccine, there's still a possibility they could transmit it to their kids, and they don't want that to happen. So I think you've got people from various slices of life that are reacting in different ways. And I think it's overwhelming, and it's scary for some people. And I think it's just, everyone just has to be patient. So if you want to socialize with someone and they only want to get together outside, do that. If they're cool being inside, awesome. I mean, we invested in a really good fire pit last winter, and
Oh, cool.
probably use it a lot again this winter. And I have to say, it was kind of fun because it was different. We would never sit outside in 42-degree weather in January, but we did. And we roasted marshmallows and drank hot toddies and had a lot of fun. And so, that there's nothing bad about that.
Right.
And it's certainly a lot cheaper than going to a restaurant. So
That's true too.
especially in New York.
Yeah, really.
So it just, it's time, I think, for people to try to live your life, to try to communicate with people, to try to see other people, but just keep in mind that, if they step back during a conversation, if they only want to eat outside, if they don't want to give you a hug or a kiss, like, don't be angry towards them because of
Yeah.
that. Just accept it for who they are and kind of where they are in life right now.
Gotcha. Mr. Producer, what you got going on over there, my man?
Yes, we have Orlando from Rhode Island. He goes, are there methods or rules to help people break up amicably? I don't know how to pronounce this word. I'm so sorry. Amicably? I think that's how you pronounce it.
Amicably.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
you go.
yeah, in a helpful way. Yeah, man, another relationship question. So here's the thing, and like the general rule is that guys don't communicate so well, and girls like to ask a lot of questions. And what happens is, when a guy doesn't communicate well and a girl asks a lot of questions and the guy doesn't answer, tension grows, and then ultimately things are gonna, fall apart. So to break up with someone, you want to be kind. If I mean, I think you just have to communicate and be honest, but don't be honest in a way that's insulting. Be honest in a way that's grounded. Be honest in a way that's sensitive, and realize that she or he, whoever's being broken up with, may not have the best reaction, and you have to be prepared for that.
Yeah. Kathryn, is it an old wives' tale? I guess it's old school, where guys stereotypically don't talk as much as women in our communication, in our relationships. And do you see that changing at all, or how has COVID affected that?
Great question. So yes, traditionally men communicate less than women do. It just
So that's true. That's true.
That
Definitely.
is true. Yeah. Women often bond through talking, through socializing. Guys bond by doing activities together. It's just, going to a football game.
Yeah. Totally.
Going, to ride cars at the track, whatever, going gambling. Women bond over coffee, the whole thing of that skit on SNL with coffee talk, like that, the whole coffee talk thing, like that. There's merit to that.
Yeah.
And women become closer to their friends through conversing. So it's hard so a woman's perspective is she likes to talk. A guy's perspective is I like to do stuff. So that clash comes in when you've got the woman that wants to talk a lot and the guy that wants to do a lot, but he doesn't talk while they're doing stuff, and she won't agree to do stuff with him. That's really where it all comes from. So, and I think COVID has made it hard, right? Because there's over the past 18 months, there's been less opportunity to go out and do stuff. And so now I think people are eager to go out and do things, whether it's to go to a play, go to a concert, go to a street fair. but there may be apprehension, or because they haven't done it in 18 months, so they're sort of out of the routine,
Mm-hmm.
And if a woman wants to sit and talk and a guy is like so focused on trying to get back to what he was doing, there's going to be tension. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
COVID has made it harder because the way that women get closest to communicate, which we've still been able to do through Zoom or through, coffee outside or whatever. And again, changing now, but it's been hard for guys to bond with girls because there hasn't been as much chance to come together in ways that were easier before. So, you go to, let's just say, for example, you go to a football game if your girlfriend or whatever likes football. I'm a huge football fan. So I love going to a professional game. I love tailgating. So what does that do? Tailgating, I talk and socialize. Then I go with my husband to watch the game, right? So we both fulfill that thing. Or and Knicks, they're really like the Knicks, but go to a basketball game.
Yeah.
Same thing. You go, you watch the event, you talk while you're watching it. Restaurants, more of a girl experience, right? But you sit, you talk for a guy, he's eating, is what sort of an action. So now people just need to rediscover how they like to bond and then give themselves the opportunity to do that. But yeah, traditionally, guys don't talk that much, or they don't necessarily communicate what they're thinking. And so women try to read into it. They ask a lot of questions, it drives the guy nuts. He gets angry.
Is it always COVID, or throw COVID out the window? Is it still a good thing for a guy to be a good listener, or is that
Very
a
much.
cop out?
I know it's really important for a guy to be a good listener. And I know it can be hard because there are some women that talk a lot more than the guy wants them to, but it's important to try to listen. And it's important sometimes to not just listen, but be interactive. So
Yeah.
show that you're listening by saying, I really appreciate what you just said, but maybe you should think about it this way, or maybe you should consider it this way. It's important to acknowledge what the other person says. And then if it makes sense, offer suggestions. Or if the girl is being critical of the guy, he can say something like, look, I understand where you're coming from, but this is what it was from my perspective, or this is how I felt when we had that argument. It's important that the guy not just listen, but explains his motivations for doing something,
But
right?
be in the conversation too, not just that's
Yeah.
horrible. Oh, that's
Don't just
bad.
be a punching bag. I mean, and nor should the woman. Like if the guy's coming after the girl about something, like she should listen to it. This whole thing goes both ways.
Yeah.
She should listen to, and she shouldn't cower. She should stick up for herself as much as the guy should stick up with himself if the woman's being critical of him.
I think if you agree with me on this one, I think I'm going to help out half the men in the audience. I don't know if you agree with me, but whenever a woman starts talking to me about her ex-boyfriend, whether he's a jerk, whether can you believe he did this, my line is, well, I'm sure there are some good things about him that made you be with him, right? Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing?
No, I think that's right. Because I mean, there must have been some reason that she agreed to hang out with him originally.
So you guys,
And
I just helped you out. Don't say I never did anything for you.
what happens is, especially when people are angry with each other, we kind of lose sight of that.
Yeah.
And usually it's only after they've broken up or whatever else has happened that the person realizes, wow, like that person did actually have some really great qualities. And that's why people get back together. That's why people miss each other, so forth and so on. But yeah, no, I think that may, when you say that, Casey, that may piss the woman off, which I'm sure sometimes it does. But like, you're right. I mean, you are right. There is an original reason that person agreed to hang out with the other one. It's just human nature.
And then I think, okay, well, maybe if I like this girl, maybe I should contact her another 6 months because clearly she ain't over it yet. If she's gonna talk to a new guy about, is
As totally valid. And the other interesting observation, and I don't have any data to back this up, it's just based upon what I've observed in life, is usually it takes a guy longer to get over a girl than it does for a girl to get over a guy.
I 100. You know your stuff. I mean,
I try. So,
no,
but no,
you are. That's why I love your show because I mean, this nothing we can't ask you, and I'm stealing all of the questions up, Mr. Producer. You got one for me?
Yeah, we have one more question and then we're gonna have to wrap up. We have Wilbert from Texas. Do you think social media has changed how millennials interact in person with each other?
Yeah, they don't know how to.
I
Um,
was thinking that.
They don't, because they're really good at doing what, talking on Zoom or, whatever platform, or conversing through Snapchat or Instagram. And so they can do that initial kind of thing, but the problem is they don't know how to carry a conversation. So they can't go back and forth like you and I are doing right now, because they just don't know how to do it. It's because their entire, like, really kind of young adult conversation has been based upon images or short tweets, 140 characters or less, or posts, or not even that, liking stuff, forwarding stuff. So they are good at acknowledging something in the moment. But when it comes to going beyond that, it's really, really tough for them. And they don't understand also the importance of listening, which we were talking about before. Like, they don't understand that a conversation is actually something that it's two-way. It's between, you and me or whoever we're talking to. And as part of being in that conversation, you have to listen, and then you have to think, and you have to respond. And so some of them, because they don't know how to have a conversation, they get super anxious and they just blurt stuff out, or they don't listen, which can then offend the person that they're talking to. So it's tough. And the only way they can get better is by practicing.
I know you work with people giving speeches. You work with people giving presentations. You work with everybody. Would you work with, I would call it antisocial?
Oh, yeah.
You will work with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, they have a lot of great stuff to talk about. They're just afraid of doing it because they're afraid of being judged, or they don't care. But the reality is, like, you've got to care about something and someone. So
you're going to have to talk to someone who's going to hire you for a job.
That's right.
Right.
Hey,
exactly. I always love talking to you guys. Kathryn Lancioni. Kathryn, can you kind of just take us out? Anything you want to say? Anything you want people to go check out? Your site, whatever it may be, something you're working on. I want to give you the final word here. As my grandmother would say, you have the floor.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So check out my website, just presentingperfection.com. There's a button on there to schedule like a free 15-minute consultation, whatever you want to call it, with me. And I'm actually working on a blog piece right now on the differences between communication styles between guys and girls. And then I think the next one might be on the effect of social media on millennial and Gen Z conversation, based upon that question from Texas. So yeah, check it out. We're posting new stuff all the time. And any questions you have, please feel free to email me.
Awesome. And give that email one more time.
Kathryn, Kathryn, at presentingperfection.com, spelled just like it sounds.
All right. You're awesome, Kathryn Lancioni, and we'll be right back. Thanks. Kathryn.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.